All right, here we are. Well, welcome to another movie review stream. My name is Mark McPherson, film critic for movieswithmark.com and a few other places. And we have just arrived in July. We're right in the middle of the summer movie season, so we've got a few films to cover here. Of course, we got to cover the film that just came out today, Jurassic World Rebirth, the latest Jurassic World film. Let's cover one that came out last weekend, M3GAN 2.0, the sequel, another sequel, to the horror thriller about the killer artificial intelligence inside a little girl. And we'll also review another new film that just came out today, Heads of State, a action buddy comedy starring John Cena and Idris Elba. So, we'll get to covering all that, but before I do, if you'd like to catch up with like the latest movie reviews like I'm doing here today, be sure to like this video and subscribe to keep up to date on the latest movies. I also have a Patreon in which you can receive some of my movie history books, and yeah, I'm working on more video essays as we speak, so those are coming in the future. But before we get into it, let's read some chats here from Scorn. He says, I liked M3GAN 2.0, bit felt I liked it a bit. Felt it went a little overboard in the sci-fi AI thing. Yeah, it's I think that's pretty much the angle I'm going to go to in my review. It's more it's a little bit more Terminator 2. Can't wait for Superman, Fantastic Four, and Bambi: The Reckoning this month. Yeah, I think I'm going to be ending up seeing all three of those. I know for sure I'm seeing Superman next week for sure. So little preview there for if you want an early review of Superman. I am going to review that when the embargo drops, which I haven't looked at it, but I can't imagine the embargo is going to be like on Thursday, so it'll probably end up being like Wednesday we do the stream, just like today, so exactly 1 week. Swirl says, did you know that M3GAN has a shared universe coming next year with Soulmate? That's right. Yeah, they're gonna splinter it off, you know. And I think it's because like Blumhouse knows that they have something on their hands here. They know that M3GAN's an icon. They know she can go far. I mean, yeah. So, in fact, you know what? Why don't we just go straight into that one since we're already talking about it. We'll get straight into the latest with M3GAN. Let me get the notes up here. Okay. Since we're already talking about M3GAN, I know that Jurassic World Rebirth is like right now, but we'll get M3GAN out of the way. Get this little lady out of the way here. Whoa, hang on. Just moving around some stuff. I think I got a little bit of a chunky stream here. All right. Okay, we got the notes ready, and here we go with a review of M3GAN in 3, 2, 1. So, M3GAN 2.0 is the sequel to the previous film M3GAN, in which a killer AI inside a little girl gets revenge in protecting the one girl that she wants to be friends with. Now, you know, the last film was definitely a mixture of sci-fi and horror, and this latest film is definitely it leans a lot more into the sci-fi, and not just because it gives M3GAN a little bit of like a makeover, and not just because it has a few more robot nods to, you know, in the designs there's definite nods to stuff like Metropolis, and there's one issue of like heavy, I forget who designed it, but there is one issue of Heavy Metal that you look at one of the robot designs, it's like, okay, I have that issue. In fact, I do have that issue over on the wall here. I just can't get it. So yeah, this film definitely does lean more into sci-fi, on more sci-fi than horror, and not just because it's PG-13. I mean, the last one was PG-13, but also the very concept of the film revolves more around AI and turning M3GAN into an unlikely ally. So it's very much the Terminator 2 route. And I think that's kind of the more interesting aspect of the film. Is like, I like the way how M3GAN comes into this plot, because they establish that she really has to like carry this film. Like I do love the fact that like M3GAN has a biting personality. How she went from this kind of mindless serving automaton into basically a woman with like her own bite and her own snark to her, and her own personality. So I loved her when they established her in the first film, and the second film it has more of her charm and her bite, and they have of course same people here back reprising her role here of Amy Donald doing the performance here, and Jenna Davis doing the voice, both putting on a miraculous performance where, you love this character. You never feel like you're seeing a very clunky AI character. So the entire plot of this film is basically that M3GAN is called back into action from like her dark shadows of technology because there is a new AI on the block called Amelia, which stands for Autonomous Military Engagement, Logistics, Infiltration Androids, just so they can get Amelia in there. She's played by Ivana Sakno. And it's basically, they thought she was going to be a weapon for the U.S., but she's gone rogue, and she's going to end up destroying the rest of the world if she gets her hands on more AI technology. So it's basically M3GAN, bartering to like get a new body so that she can go on the hunt for this other AI. And I do like their tactics in this film, the way how both like Amelia and M3GAN are smart enough to know how to manipulate everything from traffic lights to video to voice, and it had a lot more of that smart angle of a very intelligent AI that I felt was missing from the Mission Impossible movies as an antagonist. Because like the last Mission Impossible movie, it's an AI that was just going to launch nukes, and that was it. And this AI actually has a much more complex plan to basically learn more about itself and want to control a world which they feel, has birthed them and they want to take ownership of. So it's a unique story on that angle, and I think the problem is it leaves a lot of the human characters in the dust here, that it kind of just reduces them to being way more cartoonish than they were in the first film. Like you have Allison Williams returning as Gemma, the roboticist, who worked on M3GAN in the previous film, and she kind of has a little bit of an interesting role here. She kind of wants to get away from technology, but also kind of work with it. So she has a bit of a mixed relationship with it, the same way that she has a mixed relationship with M3GAN when she decides to work with her again. But we don't really explore much of her, so it just kind of reduces her to just like, she has like smartphones here and there, but she'll work with the robotics company, so it kind of reduces her on that angle. Katie, her niece, Gemma's niece that she's taking care of once again here, played by Violet McGraw. She's also kind of reduced to just being way into martial arts and secretly trying to be more into technology, and that's pretty much it for her character. I mean, it gives her stuff to do, and I think that's pretty much the framework that a lot of the human characters fit in with this film. It's just that it's busy work for them to do before we can get to like another cool sequence of M3GAN doing her own martial arts or her cool tech stuff and just brutalizing people whenever she can get the chance. And I'm not kidding when I say it leads into the Terminator 2 logic. Like, they pretty much rebuild M3GAN and say, look, you can't kill, and we're gonna force you not to kill. So very much Terminator 2 angle. I'm surprised honestly that they didn't like do a kind of like a little bit more of like a reference. There's a few like little nods here and there, but for the most part, I will say I do like that the film does keep a focus on M3GAN and her snark, as opposed and the fact that they keep the references more visual in the background instead of just having like winking nods here and there. But like I said, the big problem, a lot of the human characters get lost in the dust, and you reduce a lot of them to just being way too simplistic. Like, you have Gemma's new boyfriend of Christian, played by Aristotle Athari, who, he's smart, but they kind of set him up for a little bit of a twist that they don't really develop that much, just kind of meant to be more left field. And then you have Jermaine Clements, who is just a full-on cartoon character in this. He's playing a tech billionaire called Alton Appleton, who basically fancies himself like he has like nanotechnology, and he boasts about how much control he has, and of course he becomes like an easy target for Amelia, mostly just because he's a horny slime ball and a big egotist who's very easy to manipulate into the bedroom and steal all of his secrets. And you can clearly tell that like Clements is trying to play up this character to be pretty much like Elon Musk. But honestly, when I was listening to him and the kind of performance he was putting on, I kind of got like Tim Curry vibes. Just there's something about his voice and inflection with like his beard and everything, where it kind of made me think of like Tim Curry for just just a few lines, not a lot, but it's very clear he's trying to do a mockery of Elon Musk here, more in like appearance and ego. Honestly, I kind of feel more like Christian in this film is a little bit more of like a satire of Elon Musk in terms of like his intention and cadence. So it's kind of like a fusion of the two of them, which I guess is not really a ringing endorsement of the film, the way that it kind of almost has to like splinter characters off into like very specific roles here, and just kind of sidelines them all just so that we can get to the next cool fight with M3GAN, which, you know, to the film's credit, yeah, I mean, that's where you want to go with this kind of stuff. You want to see more of M3GAN, you want to hear more of her witty repartee, and you want to see more of her, you know, smarts in how she's pitted against more than just like, you know, humans that she's got to deceive and kill. Now she's actually got to fight against a robot who can kick her ass. So you do get some pretty cool fights in there. You do get a lot of reprisals from the last film. Like there is another like dance sequence here, which is still pretty fun. I like the fact that they used they used a Battle Tapes song that I really love from that band, so I love hearing that. Not to mention, like, the outfit she has on kind of feels like I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I kind of got like a cross between like Bubblegum Crisis and Armitage a little bit, with just like with like the glasses and like the, you know, maybe it's like the red armor that kind of reminded me of Bubblegum Crisis. But yeah, you get that, and then you also get another singing sequence for M3GAN with a little bit of some snarky comments back from Gemma in this story. So you know, and I know a lot of people are going to hate the film because it's leaning more into sci-fi than horror. I personally don't mind it, because the real draw for this film is not just Amelia brutalizing people, especially since, you know, it's PG-13, so we're not really going to get to see a lot of cool money shots, which we don't. So the film doesn't even like try to like tease that too much, and just lean into like more of like the action and the and just the wry humor of M3GAN. But watching her in this film, like, I still really do like M3GAN as a kind of vicious android character that, you know, very much like a unique horror icon. I'm looking forward to seeing what other films she's in, but this film, it kind of feels more like a stress test. I feel like it's not giving M3GAN so much a great story that she can step into and interact with other characters, so much as, you know, let's see how much weight she can carry in this film. Let's see, you know, especially for like a film that has to go through like a lot of like technobabble and setting up a lot of exposition. Let's see how much of M3GAN's charm can get through this film and make you, you know, want to watch it and want to care about it. And there's just enough of that, I feel, where you know, I did care more about, you know, watching M3GAN's cool fight scenes, that I felt like it made up for a lot of problems that it had with underdeveloped characters and just like a little bit of like a messy staging here. Not to mention the severely mixed message that the film gives at the very end about artificial intelligence and how how you should like adopt laws around it. I felt like they ended that on way too easy of a platitude, but I think that's like a big problem with the film. Is like it sets up all these bigger ideas and then kind of just, you know, simplifies them a little bit too much, just so that we can get back into more of like the action and get to more of the witty remarks here. And I don't want to make it sound like, you know, M3GAN is the only, you know, comical character in this. Obviously, everyone here is trying a little bit to, you know, to have their funny lines here. And to their credit, you know, Williams does have her moments where she can bite back on M3GAN. She's very much like the perfect straight man for M3GAN, where it's nice to see her. Violet McGraw, I feel like there needs to be a little bit more for her to do, because she does have a few good lines here and there, and I like how she kind of serves as like this beacon for basically like M3GAN's hope in humanity, to like watch her you know, be like this source of like of protection, so that M3GAN has something worth fighting for. But I feel like there needs to be way more of that, and it just, like I said, a lot of busy work. Like, I barely even covered Gemma's coworkers here, who they're quirky, they have their moments, but just not enough where I felt like I wanted to like care about them more than just, you know, having their little tongue-in-cheek moments of just like having their little like winks at the screen. It just, I don't know, like, and it's not like annoying how much they're trying to force comedy in here, or even how much more sci-fi they're trying to force in here. I just think there needs to be more for M3GAN to play off of here, because she's not really getting a lot of support from the other characters. It just feels like she's in her own world, which for a portion of the film, that kind of is the case here. It just kind of feels like Megan's the draw. You just, you stay out of her way and you just let the special effects and Jenna Davis's voice do all the work here. Which, it's understandable because it pretty much works. It's just, it barely works. I think, it's really testing my faith in how well, Megan can go for like another film. I think like as a character, I would love to see more of her, more of what she can do. But M3GAN 2.0 serves as, kind of like a test to see how far she can go with a rather, honestly, when you boil it down, it's a pretty routine like sci-fi thriller plot. And Megan, yeah, she still has her charm, but not in a script that gives her a lot more to do other than just say a few funny lines, do some cool action here, say some snarky and bitchy comments along the way, and that's about it. So yeah, as a sequel, it's not bad, but man, Megan, if she's going to be like a sci-fi horror icon for the long haul, she needs a better script than this, especially when it wants to be like very wishy-washy on the topic of AI. So yeah, M3GAN 2.0, it's an okay sequel, but there needs to be a better upgrade in the next film, a much better upgrade for a character who really deserves it. So M3GAN 2.0 should still be playing in theaters. I don't know, it did pretty bad in the pretty terrible in the box office. I mean, not like the worst it could have done. I mean, it's a horror film, but it's a Blumhouse horror film, so you kind of have to like grade a little bit more on a curve a little bit. So it probably won't be in theaters next weekend. It'll probably barely be in theaters this weekend with Jurassic World. So catch it if you can. Let's read through some of the comments here. Yeah, I read that one. M3GAN, hopefully it will be better than Subservience with Megan Fox. So odd relation. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Jermaine Clements was funny in M3GAN 2.0. He is funny. But they only he's very sparingly used. I kind of would have liked to see more of him. Have like a more central role as like a villain, maybe kind of trying to help out that the other characters have to beat the shit out of just to get him to play ball. So because there's potential in there. Goodman 4 saying hello. Hey, how you doing? Scorn says definitely agree. She won't be topping Terminator anytime soon, but probably will be highly popular with the TikTok crowd. I mean, isn't that like the bulk of like mainstream crowds right now? Is this like the TikTok stuff? I mean, she has her charms and all that, She can go far. She can. I think if she goes far enough and they can manage to get the rights secured, have Megan versus Chucky, something like that. Could work. There have been wilder crossovers. The Doll Man versus Demonic Toys and Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys. Or was it Demonic? It's basically like the Puppet Master saga, but with like demonic toys in there. So I've seen weirder excuses for a crossover. All right. Oh my goodness, my throat is not clearing up there. All right, of course. We'll get to like the bigger film that's coming out this weekend, obviously. God, my voice was not ready for that. Yeah, full moon films are a treat. Actually, if you want to watch a few of them, actually, let me turn this off for a moment here, because I just wanted to mention this. I don't know how many people have heard, and I swear I'm not endorsed by this. It's just, but if you haven't heard of like the streaming service called Eternal Family, it's an independent little streaming service, and they basically have weird stuff. They have all the they have a few full moon films there that I remember watching a lot when I was much younger. Like they have like Doll Man. They also have like they have like retro anime there. But I was just watching because I was writing an article on it today. But I was just watching. There's a weird Filipino TV special they have on the service called Koki, and it's basically E.T. It's a cheap version of E.T. that looks like the alien they have looks like this very puffed up creature that looks like E.T. had an allergic reaction to Reese's Pieces. And it's like there's no other way to describe it. It's a weird Philippine. If you haven't seen it, check out Eternal Family. I love that streaming service. It's very weird stuff. All right, now we'll get into it. All right, here we go. It's Jurassic World Rebirth. In 3, 2, 1. So Jurassic World Rebirth is another Jurassic World film, but one from director Gareth Edwards. And, you know, Gareth Edwards, he always does, like, visually appealing films. Like, I love the way that, you know, he's worked on stuff like, you know, the Godzilla films and the Creator, just amazing films to look at. But unfortunately, and this is a problem with a lot of his films, too, is that, yeah, they're gorgeous to look at, but sometimes they don't really have the best scripts here. And this is very much the case with Jurassic World Rebirth, despite having a screenplay by David Koepp, who has written on previous Jurassic Park films. So you think, okay, you know, this is a skilled writer. He has a lot of history with Jurassic Park, so, you know, maybe he can come in and offer something up refreshing. But the story that he serves up with Rebirth is just kind of... It's pretty routine here. The whole story is just a group of mercenaries and scientists end up going to this island of all these mutated dinosaurs because they got to get mutant dino DNA so that, you know, they can develop this drug that, you know, that will basically, like, you know, cure a lot of problems that people have with, like, their hearts. So basically, they need mutant dino DNA so that they can, you know, cure human illness, and they go on this dangerous trip to an island and all the expected, you know, hallmarks that come along with that. Which is kind of, you know, it's a little disappointing that the film kind of settles on that Lost World premise a little too easily, just because, you know, the world that they're trying to set up with this Jurassic World sequel is probably the most interesting. Like, this exists in... You know, at this point in the story, you know, dinosaurs have been around for a long time. They become commonplace in society, but the interest has kind of waned and they've died off, where it's pretty much like, it's looking like they're about ready to be extinct. Like, you know, there's maybe like a few blocking traffic here and there, which I thought was kind of neat, but they don't really go into it more than that because the film is so busy trying to just get the wheels in motion to go down the same trail that it's been down before. So we establish a lot of characters who are very, very, very basic. Like, they barely took off, like, the placeholder text here. So you have, like, Scarlett Johansson playing Zora Bennett, who's basically, you know, a mercenary. She has, like, her little moments of cocky dialogue here and there. You have Duncan Kincaid, another mercenary leader, played by Marshala Ali. Very thankless role for the character. Like, they do give him something to fight for, but he's pretty much doing the same bit as Scarlett Johansson. You have Dr. Henry Loomis, played by Jonathan Bailey. He's a paleontologist who's basically spent his entire life studying dinosaurs, but hasn't really, you know, got to see them out in the wild. So going to the island would be a big experience for him. You know, fantastic adventure, fish out of water type stuff. And then you have Rupert Friend playing Martin Krebs, a pharmaceutical representative, who's basically a greedy executive. You know, he's coming along on the trip so that he can get the dino DNA and willing to sacrifice human life if he has to the point where he pretty much, like, says it. And, you know, there is one scene in this film that I think perfectly encapsulates, you know, the entire reason for it being, you know, the story that it is, which is, you know, once they get to the island, Scarlett Johansson's character of Zora basically calls out everybody for their intentions here and simplifies it almost too easily. She just basically goes around each person. She says, like, okay, you're here for the money. You're here for the money. She gets the executive. You're here for all the money. So let's just get the job done and go home. And that's very much what this feels like. It feels like this is just, you know, another job within the Jurassic World franchise. You know, you get to the island, you encounter some dinosaurs, you get into some, you know, near-death experiences with them, you narrowly avoid getting chomped to death, a few people do get chomped to death, and then you make a daring escape off the island. And what is so frustrating about that is it's just... It's so close to, you know, having, you know, it's got the basic formula down, and it has great visuals, but it's just like, it needs like that extra kick, that charms. Like, it's not a bad thing that you have the characters just, you know, just the mercenary and the scientist and the executive, but there's got to be something more to them. They can't just be there to spout exposition and, you know, offer up some, you know, like passive character descriptions here and there. Like the original Jurassic Park had some charm. You felt for the characters. They had some witty and funny lines, and the thing is, like, you can see the potential there because there are some genuinely funny lines here, but they're only like once in every few scenes here, and it's just basically like a few one-liners here. It's like, okay, that was pretty funny. Like at one point they're saying like, the people we were tracking, maybe they passed through. It's like, how do you know they're not someone else's footprints? What? Yeah, someone else on this island wearing Nikes. It's like, not a bad line, pretty funny. And at that point, I was almost willing to like force a laugh at that point because I'm just like, I need something more to care about these characters besides just like the basic archetypes here. Not to mention, we have a whole other group in this film of a family of a single dad and his two daughters, and his daughter's obnoxious boyfriend coming along for the trip. So then, of course, we fulfill like the Amblin angle of just putting kids in danger, but having them narrowly escape a T-Rex biting off their limbs and stuff like that. So typical Jurassic Park stuff here, and just. I'm so frustrated with this film because it looks great. Just like Gareth Edwards knows how to work with visual effects here, and there are some stunning shots in this film. Like I particularly love the most mesmerizing shot, I think, is when they encounter this herd of these towering kind of like, I think they're called like Spinosauruses, where they basically have very long, thin tails that kind of like wrap around, almost kind of like a very long spine. So watching them like these long tails like curl around all these different dinosaurs, especially when like they're showing affection for each other, and just watching them kind of just like float there in like this big grassy field as the human characters just marvel at it. It's a nice scene. It's like, I like this. Like, I wish, I cared more about the characters getting to this moment, but, it's, that's so frustrating because it's not just that shot. Like, there's a lot of great mixture of, like, reflections in, like, the water and glass where you can see dinosaurs coming in, the way that dinosaurs will kind of, like, blend into the background. They'll slowly creep up on the human prey. That stuff is great. And then the big finale where you have, like, this giant mutant T-Rex like coming out of like the smoke, and like the flares making like the all the red smoke, and there's helicopters getting chomped down in the distance. Like that's all really good staging. It's just like this is all like great action here. And it's like I wish I cared more about it. I wish I cared more about the characters in danger here. But they never really established them past just like the basic archetypes of just fulfilling the bog standard. This film has more in common with like Godzilla than it does a Jurassic Park film, which I guess is fitting for Edwards, which is like in a Godzilla film, you usually don't care about the human characters. That has changed recently with films like like Shin Godzilla and Godzilla -1, but the older Godzilla films, you typically cared more about the giant monster than you did the human characters, and that's very much the case here. All these human characters, even though like they're not trying hard to like have any relation to past Jurassic Park or Jurassic World characters, they do make some nods to like a few characters in the dialogue, but outside of that, they had a chance to actually make these characters more original and enduring. Like they're familiar archetypes, but they have a chance to make these characters their own, and they just kind of settle into like the typical type of characters you'd expect, not just from like Jurassic Park, but from like typical adventure, creature feature B movies, where it's just like they're just there. Like you can tell which characters are just there to be on the menu for like the dinosaurs, the ones that are just there to be red shirts and be gobbled up. But even on that angle, I was kind of a little bit underwhelmed by how many of the characters don't really have that many gruesome deaths. Like some of the deaths are just kind of like characters being like carried off, and you don't see the brutality. Some of the characters are get eaten, and you don't get to see them really get eaten. And it's like, I know it's PG-13, I'm not expecting too much, but even like Jurassic Park allowed you to see like the lawyer get bitten off the toilet, and you got to see like his legs flail around and hear him scream a whole lot more. And there's a tiny bit of that in some of the kills here, but not as much as I'd like there to be, for especially for like a film like this, because it's very much all visual, and a lot of the visuals are great here, and I wish I cared more about the characters in such thrilling sequences as where they have to scale this towering mountain to get, like, you know, the DNA of some basically like some flying dino eggs here by going into a nest, and they have to avoid, like, you know, the beak chomping down on them. It's like this all looks really great on paper. It's just I need to care more about these characters, especially since I got really frustrated with how the dialogue reduced these characters so simplistically. Like, at one point they established that Henry is only doing this because he thinks that, you know, if we get all this DNA, you know, we could use this to save lives. What if we just, you know, didn't charge people for it? What if we basically had just like socialized medicine? Like, he doesn't flat out say socialized medicine, but he basically has a very quick line of dialogue to reduce it more or less to that. And Zora's character is basically just kind of reduces her line to, I like money, kind of. I kind of, you know, I'm all about, like, the capitalism. And eventually she does come around to Henry, but it's just more, it's more inexplicable than anything. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, I went through all this crap. Maybe we should just make it for free and, you know, help everyone out and not be as greedy as the executive in this film, which you can pretty much guess his fate in this. Like, I doubt it's gonna, you know, be that much of a spoiler for what happens to this dude, as what happens to every other greedy person in a Jurassic Park or Jurassic World movie. So, no surprises there, and I wish there were more. So it's the type of film that I want to love. I want to love so much. It looks great on the screen. It's okay as mindless entertainment, but with how little effort it puts into making the characters anything more than just like the very basic, you know, archetype and like the typical hallmarks of like the creature feature adventure, it just frustrated me so much because there's potential here. And it's like, you know, you know, they have like these very basic dialogue exchanges, and like there isn't even room for like chemistry with the family, because you would think that, you know, the father here, played by Manuel Garcia Rufo, and the pot smoking lazy boyfriend played by David Icano, you would think that there would be some tension there. You think they'd fight a little bit, or that, you know, they'd have their moments where they're trying to learn to accept each other, and like this journey of trying to avoid dinosaurs eating them would bring them together more. But their line of dialogue is so passive. It feels like they had a fight before, and it was like patched up before this film even began. So just like, well, what's the point? They all kind of love each other. Where's the dramatic tension here in this trip, aside from just avoiding dinosaurs? And that's when it becomes clear. It's like, yes, this film is way more interested in the dinosaurs than it is the humans, which, you know what, fine, but, you know, at that point, you know, why not just make it something like, you know, what was that horror film that it was seen just from the perspective of the serial killer, in a violent nature. That's the one I'm thinking of. Why not just do a film like that? Why not just show this type of adventure specifically from the dinosaurs' point of view? Because that's basically what everyone's coming to see. That's what everyone's going, you know, to the theater on 4th of July weekend to see. They want to see dinosaurs chomp on some people and have some mindless entertainment. And it's there, but wow, you know, I've seen Gareth Edwards do better with his characters and the type of stories he's been given. I've seen Jurassic World and Jurassic Park films with much better characters than the ones that are presented here. Like this just kind of feels like just lazy cookie cutter versions of like similar characters that I've seen before. And to a degree, yes, Jurassic World films did have a lot of those, including just, you know, bringing back in the cameos here. But that's what's so disheartening about Rebirth, is that it had a chance to not be that, to not be reliant on the other films here. And it just feels like it's just kind of falling back on that when it really doesn't have to. So yeah, a lot of potential was in Jurassic World Rebirth, and it's only partially there. Like, Gareth Edwards is still a great director. He knows how to direct great visual effects scenes with these dinosaurs, but he needs a much better script than the one that he's given here. So yeah, it's a visually stunning film. I think, you know, as mindless summer popcorn entertainment, it's fine. But, you know, if you've been through this ride before, if you've been through all the Jurassic Park films and all the Jurassic World films, I get the feeling like this is kind of gonna be a little bit more of a disappointment, simply for the fact that it feels more like a lesser Godzilla film than a better Jurassic World film. So Jurassic World Rebirth will be playing in theaters right now through 4th of July weekend. And let's see, I realized I didn't get through all the chat. Let's look at the chat here. We have Scorn saying, but oh yeah, totally want to see Mark Hamill Chucky voice. That'd actually be pretty cool. I'd like to see Mark Hamill back, because that was not a bad, for being a non-canon Chucky film. He did a pretty good job. I want to see a Barbenheimer movie. Maybe. It's one of those, like, novelties. You just want to see if they can do it, which I'm sure is the whole appeal of it. Let's see, Andronaut says, basically Deep Blue Sea plot, but mixed with King Kong Skull Island. Yeah, but very much... I didn't want to say it. It's probably going to be a pun. But yeah, very much like a watered-down version of both of that. Because Kong Skull Island was actually pretty funny in how it tried to, like, subvert a lot of, like, the typical stuff you expect in that type of, like, Monster Island adventure type stuff. Oh, I should have mentioned this too. The other problem I really had within Jurassic World Rebirth was how, like, not just how, like, some of the kills are off screen, but how every single kill has to have, like, this, like, emotionally moving moment. It's like, oh my god, why did this character have to die? When it should be, like, it should be abrupt. It should be frightening and terrifying. And here it's treated like, almost kind of like melodrama, Let's see, Scorn says, I legit didn't even realize there was a new Jurassic Park movie coming out until your review of this. Is the marketing really that bad? Like, I mean, I do get, like, marketing materials through, like, my press releases and stuff like that, but I usually don't go check out, like, a lot of, like, the TV and radio ads as much. I have seen it the ad pop up in, like, my YouTube algorithm here and there, but that's probably not good if it's not spreading. I mean, this is supposed to be like the big 4th of July film, so and it's definitely not getting great reviews, so let's see. And it says, now we know David Cope is a hack writer for most of his work. Well, I think because David only, like, co-wrote the first Jurassic Park film, and then I think he was the only writer on the sequel Lost World. So I think it's one of those things where it's like he contributed and he played off the stuff in Jurassic Park, but you might need, like, another screenwriter in there. And I say that almost kind of cautiously because it's one of those things where you don't want too many cooks in the kitchen at once here, especially if you're hiring other writers who might not be that good. Like oh god, who's that one screenwriter who usually it feels like I don't know if, like, it's kind of like a he said she said type thing, but I think what's his name, Chris Terrio is a screenwriter who usually gets hired onto projects, and then apparently something goes awry and he basically says, look, the script I wrote, that's not what's in there. Like, he's always brought on as, like, a screenwriter to do some work, and then I feel like they throw out most of his work. Like, he was a screenwriter on Justice League. He was a screenwriter on one of the Jurassic World movies. He was a screenwriter on Rise of the Skywalker. So, yeah, I get the feeling like Terrio's just one of those people who, like, is, like, we've got no one else. Call in a script doctor now. And it's just like, okay, Terrio's on board, and, but Terrio will just come out and saying, like, okay, I did everything I could. Use my notes. If you want them, don't. I don't care. So I kind of feel bad for him. Let's see. KJXana says, Back to the Future is turning 40 tomorrow. Is it? Is it tomorrow? Wait, I thought it was much later. Oh, actually, no. What I'm thinking of the actual date that Marty goes back in time in Back to the Future. Because that was October of 1985 where he did that, which is which is also the year I was born. So, yeah, I'm gonna be 40. Little Murphy says, well, they can't call Josh. Yeah, not after that. No, yeah, man. I guess. I guess they can call in Chris Terrio so that they can be an interesting story. Well, it's like we did everything we could. We called Terrio. All right. God, I'm blowing out my voice here. All right. Let's get to the third film. See if my voice can hold out. Thankfully, this isn't a big one, so I might do this one a little bit quick. All right, so let's get to our review of Heads of State. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. So, Heads of State is an action buddy comedy starring John Cena and Idris Elba, where Cena's playing the U.S. president and Elba is the prime minister. And they're attacked by terrorists, and they have to uncover a plot to basically dismantle NATO. So, like, this is the type of film where it kind of writes itself, you put Cena in there and you have Idris Elba in there and you have them as like a mismatched pair and they learn to like play off each other. And, typically this is usually what you rely on this type of film. Cause like the whole plot about, terrorists who are, trying to take control of the world and trying to dismantle NATO because one of them got betrayed in the past. It's whatever. I've seen the script a million times before. Got it. Not too much of a surprise here. It's it's written by Josh Applebottom and Andre Nemec, who have both worked on Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol. So fairly standard plot, being put in place, just for some action. Intricate enough so that there's stuff to do, but not intricate enough to be interesting, if that makes any sense. It's mostly just a film that's meant to play off, Cena and Elba, and, also give them some cool action scenes to do, because I was surprised that this film was directed by, if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Ia Nishuler, who previously directed Hardcore Henry and Nobody. So really, cool, gritty, fast-paced action films. So I was like, okay, yeah, this guy does really badass action films that are very like gritty and exciting, and like the way they're shot are just a lot of fun. And with all that, he comes into Heads of State and he directs a film that's aggressively okay. Like the action here, it's serviceable. Don't get me wrong. The choreography is actually pretty damn good here, and there are some moments of charm where Elba and Cena do get to, have a little bit of fun here and there, and they take their they take kind of like the shots where they can get them here. There's a lot more that they lean in towards the end of the film, where the shooting gets a little bit more clever here. But for the most part, it just kind of feels like a standard action film, and I feel like Cena and Elba are putting a lot of work into their chemistry, and the script really doesn't give them any favors outside of just writing very not terrible dialogue, but like very okay dialogue for the two of them. Like, I love the fact how Elba's character, basically like calls out all of Cena's trash talking. Like at one point, Cena's character is basically saying, you know what, I could lift a tree out of the ground and beat you to death with it. And Elba just says, okay, fine, do it. It's like, well, I didn't mean that literally. It's like, yeah, of course you didn't. So I love the way that Elba just kind of casually calls out his shit most of the time. And it's pretty funny. It mostly holds the film. Which is say nothing of how much like a lot of stuff in this film doesn't work. Like, there is a developing, like, they establish that Elba's prime minister character is single, so that there has to be like a love interest for him. So that comes in the form of Noel, who is a MI6 agent played by Priyanka Chopra Jonas, and she's given a role it's mostly more action based. Like the chemistry between her and Elba, I don't feel is quite there. You can see some sparks of it here and there, but there isn't enough time given for it to develop, especially since, they almost kind of set her up as like a red herring who doesn't really come back into the film until the second half. So there's not really a lot of time to develop her past that. But, on the level of chemistry and action, there's a good amount of it where I feel like it mostly can carry the film, which, to its credit, that's what it's all about here. But not enough of it where I felt like, okay, it can't quite break this kind of familiar corporate staging for these type of action films, where it's like, it's not bad in the same sense as like, the other terrible made-to-order action films I've seen this year, like that go straight to streaming, stuff like Back in Action was just, awful to watch, especially with like the aggressive product placement and stuff like that. This was nowhere near as bad as those other type of films. But that's also the problem with it too. Is like it has a lot of potential. I love seeing Cena and Elba play off each other, but man, do they need a better script. They work well in this film more mostly despite the script rather than because of it, and that's mostly just because it's relying on their charm. To the point where I would almost prefer that this film kind of like go like the Paul Feig route and just let him improvise. Just throw out this, like, you know, whatever. Yeah, they got to stop some terrorists and save NATO. Cool. Why not just let them have a ball? Like, let them loose and see what happens. I don't think that always works. Like, a lot of Paul Feig films have recently pissed me off because he relies too much on improv that isn't really there for the actors. But you know what? You know, sometimes you can be surprised. You know, like I was really surprised what he was able to get out of Chris Hemsworth in the Ghostbusters movie. So you never know. Maybe if you let Elba and Cena, you know, play off each other more, which, you know, they have in the Suicide Squad, that the chemistry was there that as their rival, they're being good rivals here. And here they kind of have to form more of a bond and a friendship. I would kind of like to see more touching moments between them instead of just, you know, being there for each other during the action sequences and then the jukebox hits kick in to kind of like really make a sillier juxtaposed moment for them. It just feels very made to order, and that it's more impressive that Cena and Elba are doing their best with like the script they're given. And it's not the worst script. It's not aggressive with product placement. It doesn't make some stumbling political marker around about, you know, it doesn't make some stumbling political remark about our world the way that it kind of did in like films like G20. It doesn't feel that bad. It does kind of like, you know, place it on like a simplistic platitude of like, you know, we're all one and we all got to be in this together. But you know what? That's fine. You know, this is a fairly mindless action film. I'm not expecting anything more than that. But also, you know, there's so much potential with Cena and Elba. I wish they had more fun character moments with each other besides just, you know, Elba mocking John Cena when they're eating fish and chips. I feel like there's more you can do. Like that's basic. That's like the first idea you bounce off. You're just like, okay, not bad, but we need to go further. What else can we do? What other funny stuff can we do with these two actors? Which, you know, James Gunn found a lot of fun stuff for them to do in the Suicide Squad in between, you know, another mission to save the world. So that kind of set the bar way up high, and I think like Heads of State, it's trying, it's getting up there. It's got all like the components to be a more you know, exciting and fun buddy action comedy, and it's only just very middling. Like it's got the potential. It's almost there, and it just can't quite bring it home. So yeah, if there's any reason to watch this film, it's for John Cena and Idris Elba. They have some good chemistry, but don't expect as much fun as don't expect as much fun as they've usually been in previous films. But also don't. But also, you probably won't be disappointed if you've seen these other, like, you know, action films like G20 and Back in Action. This is nowhere near as bad, but it's also still kind of in that camp that it just can't quite escape from that, you know, that corporate grit. The corporate camp of just, you know, made to order action films for streaming services that are just kind of like, you know, a safe PG-13. So yeah, there's a decent amount of potential here that I wish it were a little bit better, so I cared more about the film beyond just, you know, Cena and Elba trying to make lemonade out of lemons here. So Heads of State is currently playing on Prime Video, if you would like to check that out. It's I'm sure some people see it as like as a reunion from the Suicide Squad with Elba and John Cena, but it doesn't give them as much to do as I'd like. Yeah, it gives them more to people to punch and lots of action, but little more than that. So, whew, I'm able to get through it without my voice going down. How about compared to White House Down? Not quite as over the top as White House Down. It could stand to be a little bit more over the top. It kind of more or less goes on autopilot by the time they get to like the big climax where they have to have a shootout at the NATO summit. By the time to get to that point, the script pretty much just writes itself here. Like, you know, one of them will, you know, distract. One of them will take a bullet. They'll fight some really big guy here and there. So not as over the top as it could have been, which sucks because like you got two funny actors here, and I feel like you need to do something more than just having the slow motion and then the classic rock song comes on and then some absurd violence happens. Like they pull that trick so many times in this film. Just like, okay, I get it. I get the juxtaposition you're going for here, but you need a lot more. Lil Murray also asks the Olympus one. Oh no, not as. Well, here's the thing. Like I kind of like Olympus Has Fallen is much more. It's camp. It's like the nationalism going on in Olympus Has Fallen is just so goddamn ridiculous that I was laughing so hard at that film. And I think to the detriment of like the people in the theater that I saw it with, because there were some like straight up nationalist motherfuckers in that screening who were like, they were clapping along. It's like, yay, they raised up the shot up flag, or yay, the White House staff that are getting tortured by the Koreans are singing the Pledge of Allegiance. It's like, really? This is ridiculous. Like I've seen like some like canon level crap like this before. That it's ridiculous. I mean, it got way too fucking fashy for me with London Has Fallen, but yeah, Olympus Has Fallen is just so dumb that I kind of love it. But yeah, Heads of State, nowhere near that silly. Mostly just because it takes place in Europe, and it involves them, on a road trip adventure. They go into a NATO summit, and it never goes that over the top, which you kind of feel like it should. But it also wants to play it safe. It wants to be like a fairly mainstream PG-13 action buddy comedy. So yeah, it's more buddy cop than over the top nationalistic thriller type deal. So which at least I don't think it would make the film good if they went that route for Heads of State. I don't know if they would go like more nationalistic, if it would be better, but it'd certainly be more to talk about for sure. So well, not even like London Has Fallen, because like London Has Fallen just went straight up Islamophobic, and like the terrorists in Heads of State, like they're just Russians, like not even like very distinct Russians, just random Russian terrorists who are secretly working with like another American group so that they can not ruffle any international market feathers. So did I say that? International market feathers? But yeah, it's not as like Islamophobic or as gritty as London Has Fallen. It's trying to be a comedy. It's trying to be goofy. It's trying to have funny lines, and there's some okay funny lines here and there. So it's a middle of the road buddy action film, a buddy film, if you will. All right, let's do a quick recap of the films I reviewed on today's stream here, because I can feel my voice running out. We reviewed Jurassic World Rebirth. It's another routine trip to the Jurassic World saga, which is very disappointing, especially coming from Gareth Edwards, who has some great visuals here, some fun action, but he's not really supplied with a great script by David Coop, who just kind of provides the basic placeholder characters and forgets to actually give them personality beyond just being simplistic figures who run and hide from dinosaurs. We also reviewed M3GAN 2.0, the sequel to the previous film M3GAN. Leans more into sci-fi than horror, which I think is okay. And I do still love the M3GAN character, but she works mostly at the behest of a film that doesn't really give her too much to work with and just kind of reprises a lot of what still worked from the previous M3GAN film. Not as great as the first film, but there's still potential for that character. And finally, I reviewed Heads of State, a action buddy comedy with John Cena and Idris Elba playing governmental figures trying to stop a terrorist threat, which has its moments, has some fun action here and there, but still kind of only feels like it's just, barely meeting the requirements for being a fun action buddy comedy. Needs that extra kick in there. So yeah, among all three films, I'd say probably the best one was M3GAN, only just because I I had a lot more fun with M3GAN. I had a few more laughs with it, especially there's a decent gag about Steven Seagal in there. So among all the, like, not a great selection for this 4th of July weekend, but that usually happens. It's usually something very mindless and not all that, mostly just mindless summer entertainment. And I guess if you just want dinosaur action, Jurassic World Rebirth is fine. But if you want to laugh a little bit more, I would say M3GAN 2.0 is the way to go. I did not mean to rhyme that. I'm so sorry. Let's see. Low Mover says, had fun with M3GAN. Exactly what the trailer promised. Pretty much, yeah. It's very much what it promised. And it's weird because, like, I kept hearing everyone saying, like, oh, the M3GAN's lost its way, and it's like it's trying to be more goofy and sci-fi. And it's like, wasn't it already a little goofy and sci-fi? Like, what film were you not laughing at the scene where, like, M3GAN had her little, musical number in the first film and her little dance sequence? I mean, it's supposed to be campy and fun. Like, that's what I was expecting from the film. And on that level, I think the sequel mostly delivered. I think it needs a better script than just, M3GAN hunting down another AI. I think there's more you can do with that. There's way more potential. And I'm very hopeful that they'll do more with it. I mean, Blumhouse, they'll shell out for the sequels here. Even if M3GAN underperforms, I'd still like to see what they do next. Although you know what they could do, since Blumhouse has that Five Nights at Freddy's film coming out later this year, crossover between the two. The Five Nights at Freddy's gets loose and they bring in M3GAN. The two of them battle each other, and it's like M3GAN's AI kid character versus, like, these ghost kid characters. I don't know. I think it's potential. I think it might, actually make me give a shit about the Five Nights at Freddy's movies. Just a thought. I mean, if you like, and let's face it, they're gonna do something like this. They'd be dumb not to focus on that. So. Okay, where was I here? Okay, here we go. So, if you would like to read my reviews of the films that I reviewed here today, you can check them out on movieswithmark.com. You can find my review of M3GAN and Jurassic World on there. I haven't got around to Heads of State yet. I will probably get around to that by tomorrow. But yeah, if you want to stay up to date on the latest movies, be sure to like this video so that other people know what their thoughts will be when they go to see Jurassic World Rebirth this weekend. But also to stay, to subscribe to stay up to date on the latest movies, because next week I will be seeing the Superman movie, the James Gunn Superman movie. It's going to be coming out early, and I'm going to have an early review of that as well. Not too early. I mean, it's the week of, so typical stuff. So if you want to. I'm huge into Superman, so I'm very excited to see where they go with this. So if you want to see an early review of Superman, be sure to tune in next week, in which I'll be doing just that. And I will have to pick out 3 other films to review. I might choose a few films to get caught up on this year, because I am trying to do a little bit of a summer catch up. But if not that, then maybe I'll just go through the other Superman films. So let me go through a little bit of the chat here. Happy to answer a question about an older review unrelated to these. Sure. Yeah. I guess I'll open it up now for I typically don't do it when we have like a bigger audience, but yeah, like I'll open up the Q&A here. So if you want to pose any questions for like the few more minutes of streaming I'm going to do here, go for it. Let's see, Scorn comments, the Surfer. Yeah, I do have Fantastic Four coming up, but that's much later in July. So let's see, Backup B says, wondering if your opinion on Across the Spider-Verse changes at all the longer it takes for the second part to come out. For myself, missing the second half for so long sours my view of it over time. I think I might have to rewatch it again just to see it. I did let some time pass. Like, the last time I saw Across the Spider-Verse was, I believe, like exactly last year. Like, the Imagine theaters were playing it again for their like summer kids program. So I ended up seeing it again, and I still kind of like it. I think I'm a little bit annoyed that they didn't. That it doesn't feel like as much pays off. But I do feel like thematically it ends on like just the right point. I do like how it ends on like a point of like someone, deciding that they're going to do their own thing, that they're going to try to break canon, and that everyone else who believes in this person is going to come after them and help them. I think that's a great stopping point. I think if you got like a whole other film in there, because I like the whole point of the film is just about going against convention. It's going against canon. It's going against the idea that, all Spider-Man characters have to do this. And Miles is basically like, why? Why do I have to do the same thing that every Spider-Man film, that every Spider-Man character has gone through? And it's like, which is a great question. Yeah, why does he have to? Why can't we do something new? Why can't we switch it up? It's like, it would break canon. Well, you know what? Let's break canon then. Let's do that. Let's have fun with it. Let's make Spider-Man interesting again. Let's take him to places you don't expect. Let's do stuff that, you're not going to be able to go to the comics and find out what's going to happen immediately. Let's toy with the medium. Let's have fun with it. And I like that angle of Across the Spider-Verse. And at least for like the how many times have I seen it? I've seen it twice in the theater. And I think I've seen it about 4 times at home. So I've seen it a few times. I might have to watch it again just to get a good impression. But I'm still very fond of that film. I think it still works. It would, it'll all depend on how the final film. The final film could turn out just absolutely awful, and not be that thematically satisfying. But as for Across the Spider-Verse, I think that film works great. I like it. I don't think if the third film ends up being terrible, or even if the third film never comes out, that I'm gonna hate Across the Spider-Verse. I like what it's trying to do. I like what it sets up and what it thematically ends on, for wanting to be more of yourself and embrace identity and just break all the canon and stuff like that. I think that's marvelous, and I'm glad that a Marvel film was able to do that. Let's see. Backup Beast also says, yeah, I still like the movie. Just very frustrating that the second half has been delayed. I do wonder if the delay will impact how people receive Beyond the Spider-Verse when it finally arrives. Well, I mean, we had to wait quite a few years after Into the Spider-Verse, So we'll just have to see what they end up doing with it. I do think, like, the amount of time I don't think that'll be a big deal. I think if the film ends up being good, I think it'll be worth the wait. Because, like, how many years did we have to wait till from after Into the Spider-Verse to get Across the Spider-Verse? We had to wait, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. We had to wait about 5 years. Roughly, maybe about like 4.5, because Into the Spider-Verse came out in December. But yeah, about 4.5 years we had to wait. So, waiting a little bit longer, I don't think will be a big deal. Especially if it's a good film, it'll be worth the wait. It'll be a long wait, sure, but I don't know. Good films will draw people in. They'll get people interested. I mean, how long did it take for James Cameron to come back to Avatar? What, like over a decade? And people still came back to that film in droves. So, yeah, take your time, make a good film. Don't rush it out. Otherwise, it's going to be as lackluster as Jurassic World Rebirth, or as, kind of lukewarm as M3GAN 2.0, because that's usually like the trend now. It's like, if you have one good film, you rush out a sequel really quick. You got to do it now. In fact, write 2 sequels back to back immediately, and we got to get it out. Even if you don't have a good idea, just get it out as quickly as you can. Which is a problem. So if the film ends up being good, take their time. I'm willing to wait. Good films are worth waiting for. That's how we got shit like Megalopolis. Couldn't even say that with a straight face. That's how we got Megalopolis. Alright, so what else do I got coming up? So we got we got Superman coming out next week. Fantastic Four, that'll be in the weeks that are coming up here. What else do we got coming out? There's We do have. It has come up on my radar. We got Freakier Friday coming out. Oh man, how's that for a legacy sequel? Backup B says, "Yep, I'm an Avatar fan, and I was happy to wait 13 years and love both movies. I'm just glad we finally got it in the end." So, and we got more coming. Who knows? We it might end up being faster. We might not end up waiting another decade to get the next Avatar film. Because isn't it coming out soon? Isn't it coming out like not this year, but next year? I think it's got to be soon. Like he's working on it like fast, and I got to imagine like Cameron has a lot more wiggle room. As we're like, look, I can do 2 box office hits for this film. They'll both get $1 billion. So give me more money. And it's like, okay, can you get it out quickly? Yeah, sure. Whatevs. let me attach more mocap cameras. Don't jinx it. Hopefully, I mean it's up to Cameron. He's got all the money. He's got all the power. He can decide when to pull the trigger on that. I don't think anyone at Disney is going to go up to Cameron and say, I don't think you should rush this out for Christmas. I think you should rush it out. I think Cameron could pretty just say, nah, not doing that. Is it supposed to be this December? Okay, it might happen. I mean, he's been working on it and teasing a lot of like crazy crap for the last few years. So, and I don't think he's like working on anything all that big after. So yeah, yeah. Well, we'll just have to see. So I'll definitely be reviewing that this December. In addition to all the December is usually my busy season. That's where we get all the for your consideration campaigns, and I'm watching like 4 or 5 movies a day, just trying to get through everything. So somewhere in between there, I'll get to it. But well, I mean, I'm gonna have to get to it. Honestly, I hope it goes better than my other theater experiences because when I went to go see Avatar: The Way of Water, the preview screening we got. It's one of the only preview screenings I've had in the past few years that where we had like the IMAX 3D, you know, with the cool glasses and stuff, and like that. It's worth it, but we didn't. The problem was the projector wasn't set up properly to like it. Basically, like you know, like when studios like screen their films and you know they when they screen them, they basically have to. It's basically like a you know, it's like triggering a missile launch. Like, you know, there's a whole sequence they have to go through in order to get it set up. And this is the one thing I hate about 3D movies. Like, anytime we do a press screening and there's 3D goggles and stuff like that, the camera's never calibrated. It is never calibrated. It'll start up and, like, the layers will be off, and it's very clear that the layers are off. And it'll play like that for about 5 minutes before it stops. And then it has to be recalibrated for like another like 10, 15 minutes. We had the problem where I don't think like nothing was working when we went to go see The Way of Water, that it just ended up getting delayed by about like 40 minutes to the point where the reps were just like, look, do you guys want to do this tomorrow? It's like, yeah, okay, you know, there's nothing we can do. So I ended up waking up early the next morning and, you know, driving to a theater across town to go see The Way of Water. But you know what? It was worth it, you know, for waking my ass up and making me see a film in the middle of the day. The 3D was cool. It was nice to hang out in that world again. The action was great. It's like, yeah, it's everything that Cameron does. So, Backup B says, oh, by the way, have you done a review for Mabaroshi? If you've seen it, thought it'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that. I don't think I have. What is... That name sounds familiar, though. Oh, okay. Who is this by? I see it's an anime. Oh. Oh, okay. Yeah, I do remember seeing this one, yeah. Oh, okay. So this is... Was this from the one who did, the person who did, was it, Whisker Away, I think? Yeah, it's, Maria Coda, yeah. I have not seen that one. I'm gonna have to check that out. I'm always up for checking out anime though. I just finished watching man, two anime just finished recently. Lazarus, which was pretty good. I think that anime fell off at the end there, but I also watched G-Quux, which was it was okay, but like, you know, you really have to be a hardcore Gundam fan to really love G-Quux. Like, it's pretty much just it's fan service. It's basically a revisionist, like, you know, what if Char won the 1 Year War in Gundam and he took over the Gundam, like, and Zeon won? What would happen with that? It's basically that type of like revisionist type of timeline, and it's got some beautiful little nods here and there, like they restaged certain shots and events from the original Gundam series. So if you're a very big classic Gundam fan, G-Quux is a lot of fun. If you're not, I'm not sure how much fun you'd have. Like, you can definitely understand the story, but in order to truly like love it, you would probably have to be a hardcore Gundam fan. So I enjoyed the show on that degree. So, but there's a lot of other anime I gotta get caught up on. I mean, there's too much. Thankfully, there's only like a few major ones that rise to the top. But yeah, I'll let's put that on my watch list. So that'll be coming. Hey, you know what? Maybe I will put that on the stream for next time. It'll give me something else to review, because I was just going to do summer catch-up as well. So yeah, next week, tune in. We will have an early review of Superman. We'll find out if James Gunn can make his new DC Universe work. So, if you like this video, be sure to like it so that other people know about Jurassic World Rebirth and whether or not to see it in theater this weekend. Tell them to subscribe so you can be up to date on the latest movies, and be sure to check out my Patreon, where you can get access to exclusive videos as well as copies of my movie history books. So I'll be back with more reviews and more video essays I'm still working on. There's some bigger ones that are taking much more time than I thought they would, but they are coming. So let's see. Oh, I'll read one last comment here. So, fair warning, I only asked about Marubiyoshi because I thought it was a really bad movie. Looking Good was about all it had going for it, but you might see something in it I didn't. Possibly. I'm a little cautious on some of the anime films I've seen have been very, very hit or miss. Like, I don't know. Like, there are some. I will say that there are some that I kind of admire a little bit more than others do. Because there was one I saw last year called "The Light Within," which is all about like a trio of friends putting together a band. It's very light on its story, and it relies on a few more, basically more vibes than anything else. But I kind of dug the film on that level. So I don't know. I'll check it out, and I'll get back to you on the next stream about it. So. Until next time, everybody, I'll do our Mega Force kiss off here. That's not intended to be a piss off. It's a kiss off, which is, you know, the Mega Force goodbye of just like that. Later.